So I think it's actually lost its function. I think it's become a show. I think televising Parliament was a huge mistake. I don't think people should see their MPs or people in government as celebrities, because they're not. Most of them are, in my view, pretty average people. They're perfectly nice people, but I don't think they're exceptional. So I think Parliament's lost a lot of the basis, which I think structured itself so well and aligned the interests of not only parliamentarians, but also the front bench with the interests of the British people. And I argue now that most of the people in Parliament are serving themselves. They're not serving the British people.
I think...
and they're making a living, a professional living, and whatever it is, 92,000 a year, which is, I give to charity each month. I'm fortunate enough I don't need that. I'm not in it for the money. But I think a lot of people arguably do need the money, and therefore they become a hostage to the party, to the central planners, to the sort of the whips, and they're not able to pursue a path of individualism and challenge, which ultimately is what an MP should be doing.
In a blistering takedown that's gaining traction across social media, former member of the European Parliament Rupert Lowe has delivered a no-holds-barred assessment of the current state of British politics. Speaking with unapologetic clarity, Lowe declared, "Most of them are, in my view, pretty average people." He didn't stop there. The core of his criticism lies in what he sees as a fundamental betrayal of public trust. Most people in Parliament now are serving themselves, not the British people. This statement, raw, direct, and reflective of growing public frustration, taps into a broader narrative that many voters across the UK feel. A Westminster elite detached from the concerns of ordinary citizens. Lowe's remarks paint a picture of a Parliament populated not by visionary leaders or principled statesmen, but by mediocrities prioritizing career advancement, media optics, and personal gain over public service. By calling MPs pretty average, Lowe isn't simply insulting their intellect. He's making a larger point about competence, character, and accountability. In his view, the nation is facing massive challenges, from economic stagnation and border insecurity to broken healthcare and housing systems. And yet, those charged with leadership are failing to rise to the occasion. More explosive, however, is his accusation that Parliament has become a self-serving institution. This echoes growing disillusionment among voters who have watched scandal after scandal unfold, from lobbying abuses and expense frauds to tone-deaf pandemic policies and broken campaign promises. Lowe's words suggest that many elected officials no longer see themselves as public servants, but as insulated insiders clinging to power while the country falters. Critics might call Lowe's remarks populist or incendiary, but to his supporters, he's saying what few in power dare to admit, that Parliament is no longer a forum of national renewal, but a house of decay, filled with individuals more concerned with protecting their pensions than protecting the people. Whether you agree with him or not, one thing is clear. Rupert Lowe has thrown a political grenade into the heart of the establishment. And judging by the response, it's a message that's resonating far beyond Westminster's gilded halls.
I was in the chamber, sat next to Sarah on Wednesday this week when she asked the PM. By the way, his answer was awful, dreadful. He never even answered the question. He was banging on about spending and stuff like that because the man hasn't got a clue. But I sat there with Sarah. When she asked that question, there were sighs, there were groans, there were moans, there were complaints from the opposite benches and, unfortunately, those that sit in front of me, the Lib Dems, the Greens, and a few of the Jezzers lot behind me, the Gaza Independents, they were all groaning. And you know what? They are not in touch, Andy. Any poll that you do in this country would say overwhelmingly that face coverings should be banned.
I'm sure that it does, but I mean, I think the reason they were sighing is because it's this bizarre little culture war question when there are actual real issues in this country that Sarah was objectively elected to face. That by-election win, that wasn't based on she wants to ban burqas. That was based on there are real issues in this country and people are reaching out to alternative parties. She should have been representing. Do you think the people of Runcorn deeply care about a burqa ban more than their bills?
So why were the 5 independent Gaza MPs elected then?
I think
was that based on local issues?
I think so, yeah.
Was it, Charlie?
No. Well, when you lose people like Jonathan Ashworth, who again totally opposes political views, but someone that seemed to be a good local Labour MP, ousted because of pro-Gaza.
Jonathan Ashworth, by the way, is not here to defend himself. he was elected many times in that area because of a certain demographic of voters. But it was the same voters that ultimately led to his downfall.
Exactly. And look, the people in Runcorn, to defend Sarah, I think will want to have a conversation about who's coming into this country, how are people integrating, whether it's in her constituency or yours or anywhere across the country, where you're seeing people that do come into the country from foreign countries that seem to get hotel accommodation paid for. They're coming in illegally. There are people that then are granted asylum that don't integrate, and that has
and of course, Andy, Charlie's right here, because one of the big concerns in Sarah's constituency, where I went to help a campaign, was illegal migrants in hotels.
Yeah, and that's a completely separate discussion to banning.
Well, it's not. It's not. It's all part of the wider discussion of people coming from different cultures, not respecting our laws, our way of life, our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I don't think the two. I think talking about illegal migration and legal migration is a very different conversation.
I'm not talking about legal migration. I'm talking about legal.
Well, I mean, your party often talks about net zero migration, legal and illegal. So I think, respectfully, Reform UK do care about legal migration, Lee.
Charlie.
Well, it's all about integration. It is all part of the same package, and it's a big question which needs to be answered about the burqa. Is if you're wearing a burqa in British society, in our streets of Britain today, is that integration? Is that Western adhering to Western values? I don't think it is, and that's the problem. Whether you're a legal migrant or an illegal migrant, if you're coming into the UK and you can't speak English, that's a problem. That creates a barrier.
Let's call that to a close. Slowly but surely, we seem to be giving our country away every single day.
In a pointed and provocative statement, Reform UK MP Lee Anderson declared, "Any poll that you do in this country would say overwhelmingly that face coverings should be banned." Anderson, known for his no-nonsense, populist style, went further to say that most politicians who oppose such a ban are out of touch with the British public. His comments have reignited long-standing tensions around immigration, integration, and cultural identity. For Anderson, the burqa represents more than religious expression. He frames it as a barrier to social cohesion and a symbol of resistance to assimilation. His argument, though controversial, taps into a populist sentiment that the political class is ignoring the will of the people in favor of political correctness. Supporters of Anderson see his remarks as a courageous stand for national values and public safety. They argue that full face coverings undermine transparency in public spaces, and that Britain, like France or Denmark, should assert its own cultural boundaries more clearly. To them, this is about reclaiming British identity and ensuring integration into a shared civic life. However, critics, including human rights advocates and Muslim community leaders, have condemned Anderson's remarks as inflammatory and harmful. They argue that calls to ban the burqa are rooted in Islamophobia and disproportionately target Muslim women. For many, the choice to wear the burqa is an act of personal faith, not political defiance. Policies that restrict such choices risk alienating entire communities and reinforcing division.